I want to say the following. The death penalty is not only the highest measure of social protection of society from creatures dangerous to it, it is, no less importantly, a legally carried out act of revenge for what was done. Restoration of justice. Junko Furuta was brutally murdered for the entertainment and pleasure of young non-humans. Will it be fair if her killers remain alive and well? No, and again, no. The so-called Nagayama standard is the criteria by which death sentences are considered in Japan. The 9 criteria are: degree of depravity, motive, how the crime was committed, especially the method by which the victim was killed, the outcome of the crime, especially the number of victims, the feelings of the bereaved family members, the impact of the crime on Japanese society, the age of the defendant. In Japan, the age of majority is 18. The defendant's previous criminal record, the degree of remorse shown by the defendant. The kidnapping and murder of Junko are unparalleled in their level of cruelty. I searched and found no case comparable to what this satanic foursome did. That is why I took the liberty of reconstructing the events after the criminals were arrested. Since what they did went beyond all bounds, the court and the state should have acted beyond the usual bounds. I repeat, they should have. This is a reconstruction of events where Japan was not weak and powerless in front of 4 bastards. Once again, this is how it should have happened. All names are fictitious. Possible coincidences are accidental and unintentional. An unprecedented precedent. Tokyo, Ministry of Justice, April 1989. Heavy curtains covered the windows of the conference room. On the long table lay folders, interrogation reports, medical reports, photographs. The air was filled with the smell of tobacco. Officials and prosecutors were nervously smoking one after another. "This is monstrous," the deputy minister said quietly. "I have never seen a case of this magnitude. 40 days of torture. It's not just a question of punishment. It's a question of the very legitimacy of the law." Senior prosecutor Kichi Yamamoto adjusted his glasses. "The juvenile law won't allow us to demand the death penalty. A few years in a correctional facility at most. But society won't forgive." A representative of the Supreme Prosecutor's Office took the floor. "We must consider applying the Nagayama standard to juveniles." These words sent a chill through the air. "That's unthinkable." One of the officials pushed back his chair. "The Nagayama standard applies to adult criminals, especially serial killers. And here we have juveniles. But the crime is beyond anything we've known before," another prosecutor said hoarsely. "If we limit ourselves to a lenient sentence, trust in the justice system will collapse. The newspapers are already calling it a crime worthy of hell." There was a long pause. The deputy minister said slowly, "We can refer to the exceptional nature of the case. Nagayama was a precedent, and this will be new. If the Supreme Court upholds it, we will make history. The Supreme Court of Japan. Closed session, spring 1989. The marble courtroom was silent, save for the rustling of papers. The judges sat in black robes. President Kobayashi, "We are dealing with 4 defendants who were between 16 and 18 years old at the time of the crime. The juvenile law provides for rehabilitation, not retribution. But the crime of torturing and murdering a young girl over the course of 40 days is beyond human. We must ask ourselves, can society forgive if the court does nothing?" Senior Judge Takeda shook his head. "If we apply the Nagayama standard, we will recognize that adolescents are capable of the same conscious evil as adults. That will change everything. That may be the truth, said another. They acted systematically with sophisticated cruelty. This is not a random murder. This is conscious sadism. I searched and found no crime comparable to this. Not in our country or in other countries. What these four did is a disgrace to Japan and the Japanese people. I saw Chinese newspapers, added another judge. They are already writing that the victim was overtaken by so-called curse of Nanjing. Everyone froze, looking at him in amazement. The Nanjing massacre lasted about 40 days. The words fell like a hammer into the silence. The girl was tormented in exactly the same way for 40 days. They did with her the same things as our soldiers did there. Do you understand? They write about karma. Japan will not respond to these publications, but we ourselves must become karma for the murderers. Everyone looked at each other silently. No one answered. After several hours of debate, a decision was made to create a precedent. The court will for the first time allow the possibility of applying the Nagayama criterion to teenagers. In exceptional cases where the crime clearly exceeds the limits of the imaginary. The court in Tokyo, August 1989. The courtroom is crowded with journalists. Flashlights blind the defendants. 4 of them are skinny teenagers in school uniforms, their faces stony. Their parents sit behind them, their heads bowed. The state prosecutor reads the verdict. The defendants committed an act that has no parallel in the history of our country. The victim was tortured, raped, and humiliated for 40 days. The crime was of a nature that fully meets the criteria of the Nagayama standard. Extreme cruelty and inhumanity. The courtroom is buzzing. Judge Kobayashi bangs his gavel. Silence. And finally, after a long session, the court has ruled to find the defendants guilty. For the first time in Japanese history, this court applies the Nagayama standard to people under 20 due to the unprecedented cruelty of the crime. Defendant A and Defendant B are sentenced to death by hanging. Defendants C and D, who participated in the torture, are sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the first 30 years. Lightning flashed through the courtroom. The journalist jumped up. Defendant B's mother fainted. The judge finished. This precedent will be written into the history of Japanese law. We recognize that even minors, if their actions exceed the limits of human cruelty, bear full responsibility to society. Epilogue. The newspapers came out with headlines. Japanese justice has crossed the line. Nagayama applied to teenagers. Society demands justice and gets it. It was a shock for Japan, but for the first time, the families of the victim felt that the state was not turning its back. In another world, in another reality.